Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donut Shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield.
Join us every Thursday morning
from 6 until at least 7:30.
Check out the Bobby G and Company Show
right here on WSKB 89.5
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 at 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
It's around the corner now. Don't you love it? All right. At home where I wanna be, wrapped fresh by the Christmas tree. With my baby, it's just my baby and me. Got the little one stuffed in bed. Dreams Santa run through their head. So happy, it's so much fun to believe. Julian wants a rocking horse. My daughter Jessie wants a doll that talks. Little John wants a BB gun. Mama has saying just too young, just too young. Everybody loves Christmas. Everybody has fun. That time of the year, that holiday cheer, a good time for everyone. Everybody loves Christmas. I'm counting the ways. You know it's almost here. Well, Christmas Day, Christmas Day. Checking on my list, I'm almost done. Had to buy a gift for everyone. It don't matter, it's just that time of the year. Alright. I spend the money and I don't look back. Maybe even wake up in a Cadillac. The man told me, said, don't worry, I'm here. Everybody in the neighborhood got the houses looking really good. All your worries kinda disappear. It all happened more than once a year. More than once a year. Everybody loves Christmas. Everybody has fun. That time of the
Morning, Peter.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing okay. How you doing?
Getting into the spirit. That song really helped, by the way. Thank you.
That's a pretty good song. I haven't heard that one before.
Yeah, it's kind of a hidden classic. A hidden gem, if you will, by the late, great Eddie Money.
Hidden gem, huh?
A hidden gem. So here we are. What are we, a week from Christmas from today.
Yep.
2 weeks to go in the year. Wow, it goes by so fast.
Well, this
It just goes
this
by
year
so
was
fast.
weird because Thanksgiving was so late
Correct.
that we're like, yeah, okay. Yeah. With the squeeze time between Thanksgiving and Christmas was just seriously compressed this year.
Totally. And it just seems like, we were just talking about, summer and this, that, and the other, and getting ready for this and ready for that. And here we are. It's almost Christmas with a week to go. So we just had our last select board meeting ahead of the holiday. So we, unfortunately, we adjourned rather quickly because we had an event to get to, and I don't think we got a chance to wish everybody, a happy and healthy, safe holiday. So let's get that out of the way before we get going here, and hope everybody has a happy and healthy and safe Christmas season and Christmas holiday, or whatever holiday you choose to celebrate. But it's it's always a good time of year to eat too much and spend some time with your family and those kinds of things. So it's always a good time to kind of slow things down for a couple of weeks and then gear up and get ready for holy heck 2025. Here we are.
I know. Yeah, exactly. I remember when it flipped. I remember working at the Holyoke PD when it flipped 2000, and they brought in like everybody and their brother because they didn't know what was going to happen.
Yep.
I remember having like 4 or 5 dispatchers working in case all hell broke loose. Because nobody knew exactly what was. They modeled it, and they said, "It'll be fine. It'll be fine."
100%. So I worked that night because it was all hands on deck at my job because, again, we had no idea what was going to happen. We didn't know what was going to happen in our own building. We didn't know what was going to happen with software and hardware. And,
Yep.
we had spent years and years consulting with clients on getting ready for it. But, when the day comes, you really don't know what's the unexpected. And we had some big clients, and we had all these contingencies in place around, can you have staff to be able to deliver goods to us in your own trucks in case, there's a network issue or trucking issue that their dispatchers can't dispatch trucks, and can you deliver? Sure. Can you have an alternative fuel supply in case you can't get fuel for said trucks?
Right, yeah.
So we did all of that, and then my contact came back and said, well, we had a fuel tanker on standby to fuel our own trucks to be able to go from here to Hopkinton. It wasn't like it was to California and back.
Right.
And we figured that would last us at least a week of fuel, constantly running trucks back and forth to Hopkinton area. And he goes, what happens after that? I go, look, if we run out of that, we all got bigger problems, and I'll probably having to defend my family and hunt for food. So you're on your own.
That becomes a nationwide problem at that point.
At that point, do we really care if you have enough servers and whatever to go into what the storage devices that you guys were making at the time? And you're just at that point, you got to start thinking about the bigger issue.
Think about the technology of 25 years ago. A terabyte wasn't even heard of back then. It didn't exist. I don't think it existed outside of the military. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, I remember, I'm going to date myself now because I'm going to start sounding like my old man. But we got invited to a presentation at the former EMC in Hopkinton. They were acquired by Dell 7 or 8, 9 years ago now. But and they presented the first 1 terabyte storage thing, and it was 3 double-door refrigerator-sized cabinets full of disk drives. Now, there was redundancy and all this other stuff, but net 1 terabyte of capacity. Now you walk around with that in your phone.
Yep.
Right?
I have one in my pocket.
Yeah, and
it's a USB drive.
Yeah, USB flash drive is 1, 2 terabytes, no big deal, and you get that in your laptop. You can get that now. 2 terabyte drives. Desktops would be even bigger, but they're still small. They're still tiny, tiny, tiny. Mm-hmm. My dad used to tell me, when they used to order, 16K of core memory, and they used to have to knock out the side of a building, right, to lift it up with a crane and bring it into the room. Now, just think about one photo that you take with your cell phone is, 8, 10 megabytes of data, right? And it's backed up 3 times on your phone in the cloud, your iMessages, whatever. It's amazing how much data. And boy, we're way off topic of all around Southwick, but hey, here we go. It's the holidays. But, it's amazing how much the growth of storage and what people are doing. And, you read about, even in this town, they were talking about a data center project here. And, some of these big data centers that are doing all this AI stuff and the power requirements, but the storage is ginormous. And what's driving it is video. And you can't be anywhere. Well, as I look around this room, and I'm on like 14 cameras, but you can't go anywhere now without being on 4 or 6 or 8 cameras, and that stuff is Ring cameras and doorbell cameras and security cameras and consumer. People have no
idea where it goes,
and it goes to the cloud, which is someone else's server, right, or someone else's storage device, and that stuff's saved forever. So the amount of storage that's being consumed is growing, continues to grow exponentially.
Yep.
It's not even it's a chart that just keeps going straight up. And like every year they say the more data was created this year than ever before combined. And you're like, how is that even possible? But you think about it, the resolution of the video keeps going up. They're doing all this other video post-processing with face detection and other, license plate detection and all this other AI interpolation of stuff and consumer behavior modeling. And they're taking copies of hours and hours and hours of data to use that to model other things. So it's unbelievable how much the growth of data is still yet to
think
come.
about this. Back then, Southwick was probably mostly on paper.
Oh, yeah.
Mostly on paper. Like the only things that really were heavy duty into computers, maybe some spreadsheets. But at that time, computers were a lot of word processing.
Oh, yeah.
That was it.
Oh, yeah. And government, there's a lot of opportunity in government to this day to do more automation and to adopt more technology to become more consumer friendly and more efficient. So instead of hiring the 15th clerk in the clerk's office in some larger cities and towns, that there are some there's some automation and software that can come that can help alleviate that burden. Payroll processing is one. In the town of Southwick, I know I've talked about this a few times. It's a project that I want to work on with Nicole Parker as she settles into her role, and with Laura Fletcher in accounting, to take a look at how we do payroll and to look at what the burden is on the town itself to process payroll. Today somebody comes in on a Saturday because the different departments have different ends of their weeks because of the way we're set up. And they got to come in on the weekend, to process the payroll and do this and do that. And then everybody sends in their time sheets, and literally somebody walks over to accounting with a pile of paper and somebody processes payroll for several days to get it done, and then they send it in. And, I mentioned it to somebody in talking about, using something, a package that, it's available, it's cloud-based, whatever, to kind of automate some of this and handle it. And they're like, oh, it's really strange with the police have a 4 and 2 and the fire works this and there's overtime and there's contractors. And I said, you mean to tell me?
I thought Munis had something for that.
Munis does. There's companies like Paylocity and others. There's plenty of them that do payroll. But I just turned and looked at them and I go, look on the face of God's green earth, there's no other city or town or in the entire United States of America that doesn't do processing this, doesn't handle their payroll electronically, that we're a unique snowflake in the entire world. And I got the dirty look, but they got it, right? And I think it's something we have to look at as we, we're still growing a little bit. Number of employees have gone up. The amount of work that needs to go into payroll is going to go up. We've got some people that are going to be retiring and leaving, and that's the opportunity to take a look at something like that and go, hey, do we really need to hire this, or should we do this? And will it be better? Will it be better for the employees? Will it be better for the taxpayers? Will it be better for the town employees, right? Is that really a value-added function, or can we take that resource and allocate it somewhere else? We've had a lot of discussion on the board, friendly disagreement and discussion and argument, as you're supposed to have, around hiring certain positions and expanding hours of others' positions, and we all have our opinions and thoughts on how we should handle that. But if you can find ways to be more efficient and be more economical, that saves money, that you could then, I hate to use the word, but reinvest those dollars into something else that others see beneficial. Well, then maybe someone else would come over to the other side and say, okay, I'm not saying go cut this so that we can fund this, but if you can get some level of efficiency by automation, whatever the process is, and drive that, okay, that frees up capital dollars and dollars that you could then allocate to this position or that position. And yes, there's plenty of folks in town hall that work part-time or that work, X hours, and the job really requires more hours, and we're not doing 100% of the job that needs to be done, but that's the economic reality of where the town is, and that's every city and town. It's not just Southwick. And you go, okay, yeah, I would love to have 3 people doing this, but we don't have the money. We don't have the funding. And every dollar that we spend pretty much comes from the taxpayer and via the property tax. So we have to be very mindful of that and very cognizant of that. There's plenty of people that do not have, myself included, that do not have unlimited resources and can just say, oh, okay, my tax bill is going to go up this much. And that's great. And, here we go. There are, we're getting to the point now where, and it's, some of it's anecdotal, but, I use transfer station stickers as a guide, right? Over half the transfer station stickers we sell are at the senior rate. So that means we're an older,
community, yeah.
Older community, a graying community, as I think Russell Fox used to call it. And, a lot of folks are on a fixed income, and their house is their greatest asset. They're not cash rich. They live a great life. We love having everyone in our town, but we can't tax people out of their homes.
Yep.
And, and I'm sure I've talked about this before, but, the budget and the tax rate and property valuations are the 3 parts of the algebra. and it's, A times B equals C. A is the valuations, B is the tax rate, C is the budget. And if you go and you put forth a budget, valuations are set by the state. So then you just divide for C and you get the tax rate. It's simple. It's really simple math. So if valuations and, valuations in the town of Southwick are, it's crazy how much they've gone up in the last several years. So our property tax rate has actually decreased, but that doesn't mean your tax bill goes down. It just means that that factor goes down because the valuations are up, the budget is up. So therefore, when you multiply across, and then you get your, and then you divide it, right, by your portion of the value of the property in the town of Southwick, and you get a tax bill. And if our budget goes up $100, $1,000, $10,000, $1 million, the valuations, come in, and then you get to that middle number by dividing to get the, the tax rate, essentially. So whatever we do with the budget, and then we send to town meeting, and town meeting legislatively adopts the budget, that sets the tax rate. And then that sends out the tax bills, and that's what you pay. So if we're mindful of so we have really the effect of two parts of that equation. The budget, right? The select board and the finance committee, negotiate back and forth and create a budget which includes all the money plus policy, because you need to vote dollars to adopt policy, essentially. And then you go to town meeting, and town meeting is the ultimate, democratic way of doing things. Everybody that is a registered voter goes and votes, and you can vote the budget up, down, or whatever. And then if you adopt the budget, well, then you just set the tax rate, and you just set what your tax bill is going to be.
Well, people don't understand too, on the local and really on the state level, it's unlike the federal government where you can't print money.
No.
In most states, at the state and local level, there's a balanced budget law that you have to balance your books.
Right. And I think
the federal government can spend money willy-nilly, but the state and local governments cannot.
And they do. But, how do we, and we talked about this, I think, on a show early in the year, right ahead of town meeting, because there was, social media is always a ton of fun. We have to go in front of, we usually have a special ahead of the annual to clean our books up for the year. And, we always have to move money to cover a snow and ice deficit. That is the only thing that we can deficit spend.
Yep.
Right? So we never put enough money in. We put some money in that line item, but we never know how much snow, rain, ice, sleet, hail, whatever we're going to have to clear from the roads over the course of a winter. So you don't want to lock up too much money, because then it rolls to free cash. So, which you don't necessarily want to do, because you have to, free cash is basically money that's not spent in the budget, but you raised and appropriated, which means you tax somebody for that. So you don't want to have too much free cash. You have to have a little. It's good budgeting. But so you underfund snow and ice, and at the special ahead of the annual, you fund that and close it out. And someone on social media was really ripping us apart for deficit spending, and we're spending like drunken sailors, and we deficit spend it. What's the only thing we can deficit spend? And
Legally,
it's good fiscal policy to do that. You don't want to have too much money in there in a year that we don't need it. And we've had years where we spent very little. We've had years where we got a lot of snow and ice and whatever, and we spent a lot, and we had to go back to town meeting to, for a big amount of money to close out snow and ice. But here nor there. But in the when you adopt the budget, once you put that budget in front of town meeting adopts the budget, hopefully. And the schools are the ginormous part of that budget. So we've been very much working with the schools on the budget process, and we've made some structural changes there to try to help with some things there. They've been on a path of increasing budget, but once we adopt that budget, the state sets evaluations. You set the tax rate, and there was I think. And
you guys don't have a split tax rate, right?
We do not.
Commercial and residential is the same.
Called a factor of one. And we actually just had a presentation by the assessors less than a month ago where they came in. And, we've been doing it for so long that we probably got a little bit complacent with that. And there was some people that were asking about that. We should have a business tax or this tax or, whatever, a different tax rate for whatever. And I've always known this. It's but inside baseball, right? I live this stuff every day. So But for folks that don't, we had the assessors come in and kind of make a presentation and said, look, here's the amount of property in the town of Southwick that's residential. Here's the amount that's commercial. It's tiny. And I didn't bring it with me, but it's single-digit numbers.
Yeah.
So no matter what you did.
Southwick is primarily a residential community.
Correct. And no matter what you did to the business tax rate, it would be ineffectual to the residential tax rate, essentially, just because it's such a small percentage of the overall.
Yep.
And really, do you want to tax businesses out of town? Do you not want to have businesses come to your town? So you really have to, it's a balance. So we voted unanimously to keep the tax factor of 1 based on the recommendation of the assessor and the Board of Assessors, and as it's been forever. So we're going to continue to do that, until the day comes where, it makes fiscal and economic and policy sense to do that. We're going to be at that. But so, if we start as a town, the select board and the finance committee, we go through this process. We have hearings with every board and commission, plus the CAO, plus, police and fire and everybody else. And everybody's got their wish list of stuff they want to do. And then, there's capital on top of that as well. But there's, head count and hours and programs and this and that and the other. And hey, they're all worthy. No, there's probably not too many that aren't worthy in some regard, but you can't fund everything. We would quickly run out of the taxpayers' money. And which we don't want to do that. So, we carefully craft that budget and we send it to town meeting, and we have to be prudent. It's the number one job that we have as select board members and the finance committee is to craft a budget that doesn't tax people out of their homes. And really, you have to be very, very mindful of that at all times. So, last week and last several weeks, we've been having a discussion, especially it was around the town planner. And, our town planner is a great guy, John Goddard. He's accepted a new role within the town of Southwick within the DPW. So we're going to be, filling that vacancy. And so someone, it was brought up that, hey, we really need to have the planner be full-time. But there's not quite full-time work there maybe. So maybe we'll make that person also the economic development director. And that would get us to the full-time hours. And we had a lively discussion on the board for a couple of meetings. There was talk about a job description for the role. I understand that John Goddard deserves to move to his new role sooner than later, so we got to get this job filled sooner than later. But I made the point that, hey, we've got to, if we want to do that, great, but you got to put it in the budget and get it approved at town meeting, or else, we may have some money laying around because some other positions weren't filled and there's money in budgets that we could move around. But that means the job ends June 30th.
Right,
July 1st, we have a new budget.
Sustainable.
Right. So, and who in their right mind would quit their job, let's say, and come to work for the town of Southwick, not knowing that they have any job security beyond June 30th?
Yeah, it's not like they're a pro MLB player or something.
Correct. Yeah, it's not.
I'm going to get a new contract.
Correct, and we don't have luxury box to give away like Mr. Soto got. But you look at that and go, you have to go in front of town meeting, and I said 2 minutes ago, or maybe it was 10 minutes ago now, was, town meeting sets policy and the budget. And basically what you're doing, when you put money in the budget to elevate a role from a part-time role to a full-time role, you're setting policy. You're not just...
Well, you're saying that's now a priority of the town.
It's a priority of the town, that the planner needs to be full-time, and it's also going to be the economic development director. And I always looked at this from an economic development standpoint. We have an economic development commission. I think we have one of the largest ones in Western Mass, if not the Commonwealth, based on us enlarging that board to fill, because, well, frankly, the select board couldn't make up their mind of who to appoint and who not to appoint, so we just appointed everybody and made the board bigger. And that's fine. They've done a good job, but they have a role to play in economic development in the town of Southwick. We can agree to disagree on certain aspects of how they're going about their mission, but that's all fun and games, and that's why we have this appointed board and commission to have these debates and come in front of their appointing authority, which is the select board, to kind of help them along with their mission and give direction from what the elected select board, who appoints the Economic Development Commission, really wants to see out of that commission and what they're doing, and take their feedback and ideas that they get from themselves and from the public and kind of come up with a great mission there. And then I also think it's part of the role of the CAO and the select board to be the ambassadors for businesses that want to potentially locate in the town of Southwick, and have discussions with them and work with MOBD and other state agencies and other firms that may come in front of the town with potential ideas and concepts for new businesses or reusing existing structures and whatnot for economic development. And also formulate other things, and working with the planning board and other boards and commissions to move that mission forward. You know, one of the things that's been near and dear to my heart, I've been working very closely with Randy Brown, the DPW director, for years now, about extending Hudson Drive, which is in our industrial park, through to Sam West, and connecting Sam West will connect back to Tannery, which connects back to College Highway, so you can have enlarge the industrial park and make property available. That was the former sand mine, as that's coming to a conclusion, and you could have economic development in that area, and also have the ability to bypass the town center, if you will, with some of the traffic that may be created by said development. If you're coming from Agawam, you could turn onto Hudson Drive, coming west. But if you're coming from the north in Westfield, you could come to it from Tannery and come down Tannery to Sam West to Hudson, instead of coming all the way down into the center at 10 and 202 and then coming back up 57 to Hudson and in. So that's, it's a good opportunity, and it's something that needs to be done. It's part of the process of repurposing that land. That sand mine is just about done. So we have to be thinking about how that's going to be developed and make it, kind of a smart development, and encourage, certain businesses to come and build, offices and other types of facilities there. Not trucking terminals. That's not what we're talking about. But businesses that are desirable to the town of Southwick from an economic basis, and meeting the needs of our residents for employment, potentially meeting the needs of our residents for goods and services. Right. So let's see how we can and I think that's the role of the select board to do that. And then you bring the other boards and commissions and other stakeholders. I've been at meetings with people when they're talking about, and it is. The wrinkle to it is, with the select board being a 3-member board, we always designate one select board member to work on a project until it's at a point where it can be brought back in front of all the other boards and commissions and the select board to talk about. Because sometimes it is competitive. You're competing with our sister city to the north, which we're in right now, or our city, our friendly city to the east, or Connecticut, or Vermont, or Florida. You never know, right? And so it's this siting company that's looking to site an opportunity, and you have a roundtable discussion of what are the benefits of your town, and what can you bring to the table to make it, enticing to them, and then also great, we'd love to do this, and this. Well, what are you going to bring to the town of Southwick? That's, what are the jobs? What are the, what impact mitigation are we going to talk about here, if we need any? What are those going to be, and how do we bring something together? We've had projects that got off the ground that were non-starters. We've had projects that never got off the ground. I've talked about this in the past on the board, but we had a meeting with a company, and by the way, that's where all these project names come from, right? Usually it's a site development company. They don't tell you who their client is,
Right.
and you kind of have a discussion. And my client is looking to develop an X 1,000 square foot building in your town. What do you have? And literally, you bring the water guys, the sewer guys, gas and electric, internet, blah blah, and you kind of have a discussion. And then you go a little bit further down the road, and they you kind of figure out what they're going. We had one. It was called Project Independence. Project Independence what ended up being a hardware store chain franchise like True Value, but it wasn't True Value. And they wanted to build a Northeast distribution hub. And the guy says, yeah, we want to build a 700,000 square foot building, expandable to 1 million square feet.
Ooh.
Cool. And
Where?
on the Griffin land. It was actually the piece that came in a couple of years later with another project that was called Project Bailey by the site developer that turned into the Carvana project.
Gotcha.
But it fit easily. It wasn't a good project. It never went anywhere, right? But it was just one of those things where you have those discussions.
Yeah, the inquiries happen all the time.
All
I mean,
the
I
time.
remember Joe
And
Mitchell, when he was doing that, it was like, he'd tell me,
Right. And some of them, and some of them are great. Some of them may be good, and they're just not a good fit for the town of Southwick. A 700,000 square foot warehouse was never going to be a good fit in the town of Southwick, right? And part of it is kind of around economic incentive. What incentives are they getting from the state? Are they going to get a tax break from the town of Southwick for 10 years or for 5 years or 1 year or whatever? And then you bring it forth to your board, and then you bring it forth to, they still got to follow all the other processes, right? Conservation, planning, water, state highway, whatever they need, other permitting that needs to happen. And there's a public, transparent process that happens for all of it, as we saw play out with the Carvana project, right? That came in, they went in front of the planning board and said, and the town was very vocal in opposition to it, and they said, nope, we hear you, goodbye. And they left. And it was gone. And, the interesting thing with Carvana was there was no need for a town meeting. Actually, it's not a need. There was nothing in front of the Carvana project that would require a town meeting because after the second meeting with them, I literally asked the question. I said, let me understand you. You want to build a 200,000 square foot building, give or take, and, pretty good sized parking lot, but you're not taking any state money, so you're not going to trip MEPA, which is Mass Environmental something, and which that process takes about a year. And you're not in a wetland. You've been in front of conservation twice already prior with this piece to prove that you're not in a wetland. And then they told you to go hire a consultant and tell us that you're not in a wetland. So you've done that. So you're not in a wetland. So you're not in front of conservation. There's nothing you need from the select board, and you don't want a local tax incentive. So you're going to pay the full amount from day one on your investment. Yep. Okay. So we're done here. You need to go and talk to the planning board because that's the board that's going to have to hear.
That's your final hurdle, yeah.
That's it. And so literally from if you boil that whole project down, and now we're 5 years removed from it, and a lot of the acrimony and death threats have gone by the by. They could have come into town at 2 o'clock in the morning, dropped an envelope in the clerk's mailbox with a check for $75 and been in exactly the same place we were after 2 meetings because they didn't need anything. Yeah. They weren't asking for anything. They just wanted to apply for a special permit, and they met informally with the planning board as Project Bailey because they were not ready to reveal who they were yet, and they met informally in a public session, sorry about that, and they had a discussion, and it touched off from there. But that's just the process, and it always is going to have a public component to it just because of the nature of zoning and how it works. But from an economic development standpoint, and we've seen people in the town of Southwick do not have an appetite for large industrial type development. So,
which would help them in the tax base part of it, but
potentially, but it does.
People don't see that though.
Nope. And then there are issues that come with that type of development that you need to figure out how to mitigate, right? We will quickly overwhelm, for example, you would quickly overwhelm the intersection at Tannery and 10 and 202, right? With several medium-sized development projects in that industrial park. We have to come up with a plan for that intersection and how you mitigate that, right? And we'll have to look at all of those aspects of what those are. And there's folks that can look at that for us, with us, and come up with some of those things. But, smart growth and smart development, is the key to keeping property taxes in check and bringing valuable jobs and goods and services to the town of Southwick that people want.
But the flip side of it is people say, well, we don't want the industrial, but the only other way to grow the tax base is to build more developments.
Correct.
And that brings in families and kids and things like that. So the unintended consequences of that is it drives up the utility costs because there's more people using the utilities. It drives up the school costs because if there are families and things like that, there's going to be more people taking advantage of the service provided by the town. It's going to drive up trash fees if you have those, if you offer trash collection and everything else. Whereas a big business coming in is going to bring people to the town, but not affect all those other services.
Correct. And, housing tends to not be a big driver in a positive way on the tax rate because of, when you have children in the schools, other folks are paying.
Wash, yeah.
Right. And it's a social compact that kind of works. I mean, especially in Massachusetts, right? We have the best schools in the country. we have great schools here in the regional district that we're in, and we're blessed that we have the schools in our town. Superintendent Willard and the school committee and everyone else has done a great job of working with the town to keep the budgets, within the stratosphere of realism. And we always do a good job of working collaboratively, understand where we're all coming from on that, and also, with our partners in Granville and Tallinn to make sure that we're doing a good job financially there and getting the most value for our dollar. We're suffering from declining enrollment. Fortunately, we're a hold harmless community and a regional school in a rural area, so we get a little bit of additional funding from the state. But we all know that when things get difficult at the state level, they always come for that, right? And we've got to be prepared for that eventuality. And the declining enrollment is very real, right? That's not just Southwick. That's Western Mass in general. Eastern Mass is seeing all the population gain. We need to see how we can continue to increase the population of the town of Southwick at a pace that puts the right number of kids in the school. We can't go hog wild on that. And we have measured development. Planning board's got a lot on their plate in that regard around some bylaw revisions that they need to undertake regarding recent court decisions on zoning and how you do special permitting for certain types of housing development. We've been working with them. They've been working with Pioneer Valley Planning. They've been trying to get some grant funding to try to work on that. That should be a number one priority for the planning board right now, and I believe Chairman Dougherty is doing a great job there and has been working on that. And they've had some challenges, some interesting decisions come with them. We're in litigation right now with one applicant for a Dollar General store on College Highway that they voted against. Dollar General's brought suit against the town to try to compel us to let them build it. It's been remanded to the planning board to kind of rehear it and craft a new decision around that. And that's part of your bylaws, right? Your zoning bylaws says, look, if you do this, and this, and you mitigate your impacts as best as you can, the planning board has some discretion around permitting around certain things, but they pretty much have to do it. And if you want to change where you can put something, good, let's go in front of town meeting and change zoning, because that's the process. You can't change zoning via a special permit decision. And that's the argument that, and I'm just echoing what Dollar General's argument is. I'm not debating the merits, but the process to change zoning goes in front of town meeting. And by the way, and this is a good segue to one of the things I really want to talk about today is, one of the goods and services and stuff that we're trying to bring to, and to attract businesses to the town of Southwick is, utilities, right? We've got, we have Eversource for power. We have Eversource now. It used to be Columbia Gas. Now it's Eversource for gas. What we don't have, and we need to continue down this, is a competitive marketplace for internet. And we have,
All right,
we
I'm
have
gonna
one
let you
supplier.
talk about that because I'm gonna run to the bathroom.
Good luck. And what's one of the things that I've been championing now for the better part of a decade. It's certainly 5+ years. It was pre-COVID. We started talking about providing municipal fiber internet to every resident and business in the town of Southwick. We had a high-speed internet subcommittee that was formed by the select board to go and study this. We went in front of town meeting twice to have the town meeting support the founding of a municipal light plant in order to facilitate installing municipal fiber on the utility poles and in the rights-of-ways throughout the town of Southwick. It was by a wide majority, and to accept that. So we've gone back to, we then voted as the high-speed internet subcommittee sent back to the select board, and the select board unanimously adopted an intermunicipal agreement with the city of Westfield and Westfield Gas and Electric, Whip City Fiber, to be our supplier of that service to the town. And then we worked on the financial modeling to what the actual cost is to install this service and then to operate the service over basically a 10-year horizon. And the cost with COVID and from COVID, everything's gone up in price. It effectively almost doubled. But what we did do was we took the worst case scenarios of the make-ready work, which is the work that's required to move power lines and phone lines and whatever up and down or replace poles in order to have the room on the poles to put the fiber up and connect every home and business in the town. And it's a big number. And so the high-speed internet subcommittee went back and we talked about it and we said, look, we really should go back to the voters via town meeting and ask them to give the select board the authority to bond for the whole project. It does not mean to borrow all the money at once. It just gives us the ability to have surety that once we start construction of the project, that we'll be able and have the financial resources to finish it. The concern of the high-speed internet subcommittee, which is a very real one, is that we can't get chicken. We can't do some of it and then stop and be a change in the select board or change town meeting that they just don't fund the third and fourth or fifth year of construction and we just say we're done. Because we'll end up with half the infrastructure built, not all the businesses and residents connected, and we'll have a cost structure that's built on having that. And a take rate or the participation rate is based on the total number of available units. And if you don't get the opportunities for those units, they become a 0 percentile take rate because they can't have it. And therefore, you can't meet your bills. You can't pay the interest and the principal on the debt. We're doing a survey right now.
Didn't we learn this lesson with the sewer projects?
It's exactly what that is, right? So
I remember talking about this for years.
Well, and I've seen there's been advertising from a couple of what look like citizen-funded groups, but they're actually Comcast shills and Frontier shills. They've been taking out some Facebook ads and some other places with misquotes from the select board and showing some other. We got postcards mailed ahead of town meeting with dumpster fires and all kinds of stuff. They're nervous. They know that they love having a monopoly in the town of Southwick, and they have the ability to charge whatever it is that they want and provide whatever level of service they want.
Well, because it's so this is the problem that I ran into, and the communities don't benefit. So the cable franchise fee, the people don't realize that the cable franchise fee you see in your bill only relates to cable TV.
Correct.
So no community's benefiting from the amount of internet that's sold by these companies because when the money went out of cable television, they came up with side businesses that could run over the existing wire infrastructure they had. Mm-hmm. So that's where the phone, home security, and internet came from. Well, they don't have enough physical bandwidth on the cable TV side.
Sure.
To support what people are demanding nowadays.
Sure. And what they're going to do is,
it's a physical limitation.
100%. And what they're going to do is eventually they're going to have to pivot and they're going to have to start constructing a more modern network within the communities they serve.
Yeah.
And they will go to the places where people will pay, right? And they will skip places that are distant. They will skip places that not easily gotten to, right? And by the way, they're going to do exactly what you see on another utilities bill is you're going to start seeing other charges on your bill. So you pay $120 a month for gigabit down and crappy up internet, and then you're going to see cost recovery fee or network development fee or some other fee because it's a different regulation scheme than cable TV, right? So. Mm-hmm. They'll nickel and dime you to death, just like you see on your Eversource bill, for example, today, right? And so the cost is going to continue, and they'll just increase the price $5, $2, $3, whatever. Yep. It doesn't matter because they have no one else to compete with. The whole point of this, look, and I'm a fairly conservative, fiscally conservative person. I don't think the government has a lot of place in a lot of these things, but in this particular case, the way the federal government and the way that these networks have been apportioned and the way, if you look at how they're built out, how come we don't have a competitive marketplace anywhere for cable TV and internet? Even though our contract says, hey, anybody can come in and do it, nobody will. It's preordained. So we have to do this in order to introduce that competition. Mm-hmm. We will offer a low-cost, high-speed, symmetrical internet service. And it is going to be better than what the incumbent provides today. It's going to, and we have a 10-year horizon, the bonding process, a 10-year plus horizon to generate the revenue, that the revenue coming in from the project will pay for the service, right? So it's just like water, right? Our water service today in the town of Southwick was built smartly. We put enough infrastructure in that it's paid for by the water users. It's not a burden on the tax rate. The sewers, on the other hand, not so much, right? They didn't build enough infrastructure. They didn't build enough sewer infrastructure in the town of Southwick, but we did a massive construction project to build a parallel interceptor into Westfield to get to the plant. And guess what? We don't have nearly enough flow to cover the investment that was made in that infrastructure and the capacity at the plant in Westfield. And Westfield, basically abuses us a little bit because they can on the rate that we're paying for that flow. Therefore, we're subsidizing the sewers on the tax rate, and we have no way to get off of it right now. And so this is why, to circle back, this is why we're saying, look, let's put up the money in the bonding to pay for the whole project. We're not going to borrow it all at once. We'll borrow it as we need it, and at peak, at our peak borrowing will be, in construction with revenues coming in. But it gives everyone surety, especially the select board, the surety that it is going to be able to self-fund. And if you don't have the bonding authority to go and borrow the money to build the infrastructure, you're assuring yourself that you can't complete the project, and
fail.
Therefore you can't get the ratepayers, then you will fail. So this is kind of assuring our mutual success. And tying that right back into economic development, internet and high-speed internet connectivity above the 1 gig number now even, okay, is an absolute economic requirement for anything. You can't, if you went and looked at a house right now in the town of Southwick, this is we don't. By the way, there's no cable TV or internet infrastructure here. You're out, right? You're not buying it.
Well, here's the other thing too with the fiber infrastructure. Once you guys lay that cable, we're only starting to really tap into the physical capabilities of the fiber optic cable, right?
Correct.
So the technologies that are out there now can keep being refined, whereas the copper cable that your cable internet is over is got a physical limitation,
Yep.
and they're at it right now.
And the power. I mean, and everything else.
the
I just read that AT&T is getting out of the copper business. Period. Except for the state of California, because the state of California has a law that requires that they have to keep it. But everywhere else, they're saying, look, it's a power hog. It's a maintenance nightmare.
Oh yeah, with all the repeaters and everything.
And it's all out of date. We're not going to go through and replace all this copper. We're going to maintain our fiber services, and you're seeing that in other companies. But getting back to where businesses that the business that I work at, for example, but every other business and resident now. You need internet as part of your daily life. Think of all the things that you have and we talked in the beginning of this thing with the Ring cameras and, your connected microwave and, connected thermostat and all this other stuff.
It's become a necessity of life.
It's a necessary utility as electricity and water, and you need to have it in today's society. And lastly, I just want to be really, really clear. I've said it 100 times, but it's worth repeating because the shills are out in force on this. We are not going to be in the business of providing any programming. None. We are going to provide you with an IP address and a router, and you're on the internet. If you want to get Hulu or YouTube TV
you
or
can find
whatever,
there's plenty of options.
knock
out there to
yourself
do that,
out.
yeah.
And if you want to spend more or less than you're paying for your current package, that's your choice, right? If you want to put an antenna on your house and get over-the-air HD TV, that's free. Knock yourself out, right? That's great. But we are not going to get in the business of programming. And every example that has been presented to me by the opposition to these types of programs, they show, this town lost X, this town did this project failed. They tried to be the cable TV provider. Mm-hmm. Frankly, the Comcasts and the others own the content now, right? Comcast owns NBC, et cetera. Yep. So you don't want to be in the business of competing with them for content. And they're feeling it. They're starting to offer OTT, or what they call over-the-top packages.
Well,
you can buy Xfinity TV services now without buying cable TV. Why? Because they're shedding users at an incredible rate as other cities and towns throughout the country wire up for Muni Fiber, right? And the federal government has done the federal government's done us exactly zero favors because the current administration has spent $1 gajillion on rural fiber and not hooked up one user. But locally here, Whip City Fiber and the other fiber providers in the area have done a phenomenal job in contracting with other cities and towns to be their provider and actually doing this. West Springfield's in construction right now. Long Meadow's going to be coming along.
My cousin built out South Hadley.
South Hadley, no, it's at Sheld, they call it, right?
Yep.
They're doing a great job up there. We talked to them, and we ultimately chose Whip City.
Yep.
And we're touched by Whip City because we border Westfield, so we've got there's some advantageous connection points for us with Whip City,
Right.
that we can get going right away once we get started with building the hut and all this other stuff. But we can start because we touch Westfield along, and we also have some conduit along the rail trail and stuff like that where we can get in there. But I really, really think that, I called it a moonshot project when we first started talking about it. We have the $900,000 ARPA fund, so it's almost $1 million. We got $250,000 grant from the Commonwealth along to kick us off. So there's, $1.1 million along the way. It does, it's a portion of it. It's, certainly we're going to be carrying the most of the debt on the ratepayers, not the taxpayers, but the ratepayers for the service. We've got a survey out there right now. Please go to the town webpage, look for the link to that survey, fill out the survey if you want this high-speed internet in your town, because the select board, the other two members on the select board have their reservations for their own reasons as to why they're concerned, and they're rightfully so. They got to be convinced it is a big financial endeavor. But I think for the future of the town of Southwick and any city and town, but I only work in the town of Southwick here, is for the future of the town of Southwick, providing this municipal internet is one of the most important things we can do as an economic driver, an educational driver, and a cost-saving measure for the taxpayer, because we're going to lower one of their significant expenses, which is continually escalating, which is internet connectivity. It used to be, we're always adding these things to our lives that we need: cell phones, internet, right? This is a monthly number that you have to pay, right? If we can reduce that, that's just a benefit to the homeowner. And if we can provide this service to to every city, every town, business, and resident, and that is a goal of this project. It's like in the charter of what we're doing is, and kudos to the people who, when we brought in a cable franchise, that it's in writing that they had to connect everyone. They couldn't be selective and just come through the downtown dense area and be done. They went all the way up to the west side of town and around the lakes and everything else. So we're going to do the same thing. Everyone's going to get connected. It's not going to be all at once. I think we're broken up into 18 or 19 fiber hoods, right? And we're going to address those fiber hoods, and we're going to have a competition, right? Each fiber hood is roughly equivalent in the number of users. So some are big in area, but the same number of users as a small area that's more dense. But we're going to have little contests, right, to get participation signups in those fiber hoods, and the ones with the most signups get built first, right? And we'll go there first, but eventually we will build out the entire town and get everybody that wants that service on the service, and the service will pay for itself. And it'll cover the debt, cover the interest, and cover the service that's being, the contract we're going to have with Whip City Fiber for a per user amount. And we'll provide you the router and everything you need to do the service. You want to bring your own router from there because you've got an Orbi, because your house is big and you've got 4 or 5 of those things, or Ubiquity or what have you. God bless, right? But if you want direct support, we'll provide the technical support and everything else up to our router and everything else from there. You want to get internet phone? Good. You can port your phone to, any of these, over the internet phones, and it'll be an option through us as well, at an additional cost to provide a phone. But I think it's UMA is the service that they rebrand for Whip City, and we'll probably do the same thing. But you can go to Costco and buy an UMA phone today, less expensively, and just pay a small fee per year to use it, and you can buy all kinds of packages, whatever you need. But you can take that on as well if you want a home phone. Frankly, most people don't even have it anymore.
No, they
but
just
some
use
people
their
do.
cell phone as their primary phone.
Some people do. I know I still have I have an UMA phone at my home only because I'm kind of attached to the number, and so I have that to keep it. But a lot of other people are going to drop it. The incumbent today makes it disadvantageous to not have it. You get it. They have some kind of bundle with TV plus phone plus internet, and you call them and say, "Look, I really don't need this phone. I never answer it." And the only one who calls me is tech support scammers and telemarketers, and they go, "Well, your bill's going to go up if you get rid of the phone." Well, I'll keep the phone then. So, but we're going to offer it for those that want it, because there are people that do need it for various reasons or want it, and so we'll keep that. But the main thing is the high-speed internet, reliable, cost-effective, kind of built out for a little bit of future think. And, you start thinking about all the things that are connected in your own home today and business and how we have to get there. And it's just so important. So I can't talk enough about it. I think it's a ginormous economic driver. It's a hugely important project for the town of Southwick to do. And I consider it, just super important. The most important thing that, we're going to put in front of, after the budget, of course, of things that we need to do as a town. And there's been a groundswell of support for it. We got a survey that's out there. I mentioned it. Please go to the town webpage, fill out the survey, make your voice heard on it. And heck, you can leave your name, address, and email so we can, when we get ready to start apportioning the fiber hoods, we can reach out and contact you and say, hey, by the way, you filled out this survey and indicated your interest. Are you ready to sign up right now? Because you're in fiber hood number 6, and hey, if we get the most responses, we'll build fiber hood number 6, first. So let's go, and that'll just help us get to revenue faster. So, and once again, Peter, we just chewed up almost the entire hour. How are we doing?
You got a couple more minutes. Well, I went and looked at my own device at home, and I have a fairly smart home with lights and things like that. I have 25 connections on my router right now.
Easily have that. I mean, if you think about it, right? And we just did at my house, we just did a kitchen reno. The bloody oven's connected, right? Mm-hmm. You can preheat the oven. It tells you when it's at temperature. It tells you when the timer's up. The fridge, and that's not huge bandwidth. It's not a bandwidth issue, but it's a reliability issue. Eversource has connected thermostat programs now. They'll pay you a certain amount of money per year to have your thermostat check in with them, and on days where power demand is really high, they'll roll your thermostat up 2 or 3 degrees for a couple of hours.
Ask California how they like that.
But
they rolled.
Well, they do brownouts, right? They just turn you off. But in Mass right now, what they've been doing is they'll increase your thermostat by 2 degrees for 4 hours, and you don't even feel it. But it helps on the grid at peak demand on peak demand days. I've noticed over the last several years we've had a lot more peak demand days than we've had in the past. But those kinds of things, the Ring cameras, the security systems, garage door openers, you name it, right? And people are cutting the cord. They're tired of some of the cable bills that they were getting for programming, so they're going to alternative programming, and so you're carrying that data over that outdated infrastructure, which is not great. So we're going to bring that in, onto the fiber, and you can get Philo for $20 a month, or if you want to go crazy and get Fubo with all the sports and everything else. And I'm not a shill for any of those, but those are ones I know off the top of my head.
I'm looking for a new one because YouTube TV just went up to $82 a month.
100%. Are you a sports guy?
Not hugely. I like the NFL, but I'm not a huge sports guy.
So if you don't need ESPN, or if you're not a big sports guy, Philo. They're $20 a month. You'll get all the broadcast
part is
stuff.
Local.
Yeah, I think they have it. So take a look at that, Philo. Full disclosure, I used to work with that company. They were a customer. They're no longer a customer of where I work. But I know the guys, and I know the product that they offer, and it's a decent product. And it's their whole mantra is $20 a month, no sports. We're cheap. Sports is what costs all the money. The local sport franchises and
somebody's got to pay all those salaries.
And ESPN is a big number in your cable bill.
How does the salaries get paid from the TV contracts, 100%. Which get paid by you?
Juan Soto's making $780 million right from the New York Mets plus a free luxury box, so it pushed it up over $800 million. You don't get that selling hot dogs at Citi Field.
Yep.
Anyway, so we talked about high-speed internet. So I think we're good on that. We talked about the part-time planner and discussion around there. We had a great Wreaths Across America ceremony this past weekend. That's such a great event to have people come out and show respect for veterans. Kudos to the folks that put that on. This is, I think, the second or third year. I believe the second year we've done it in the town. And we put a wreath for each of the branches of military service. Why they have me do the one for the Space Force, I don't know. Gene Thoreau seems to take a good thrill of having me do that. But there's a lot of veterans in the Southwick Cemetery, and I know the big procession came from Agawam, from the Veteran Cemetery, to join us in Southwick after that procession. That have given, that gave of their time and their energy, and some their lives and time away from their families in support of our country. So to put a wreath and just step back and have a moment of positive thought for the effort that those people and their families gave to our great nation it's a true show of respect. I made a point this year, myself and Chief Banish laid a wreath at the grave of former officer Lieutenant Robert Laughlin. Last year was very emotional. I think he had been was buried about a week or two before the Wreaths Across America, and me and former Chief Landis placed a wreath on his grave. So we did that again this year with the current Chief Banish and I. And I sent a picture to his wife because she was traveling. But, it's just an emotional thing. And there's plenty of families that, have deep roots in this community, that have, many family members in that cemetery that gave and served our great nation. So it's a great ceremony, a great honor to be able to present that wreath to and place that wreath for one of our branches of military service, and then also show some respect for, a modicum of respect. And they make it a big part of the process as you place the wreath and then you step back and just kind of have a moment with that person. And, just a sign of respect that you're willing to give of your time and your effort to go and pay that respect. I think it's just huge. And it's great. I love when people come to our Veterans Day ceremony and our Memorial Day ceremony, and they bring their kids. We've been relatively fortunate militarily in the last, while here, but we have people involved in dangerous places all around the world at all times, and people need to understand that freedom's not free, and it's been earned and hard fought for over many years, and to see the kids there and to start to learn those lessons, because it's just an important thing. I find it very heartening to see that, and Southwick always comes out for these things, and this event was no different. We are going to have a special town meeting in January. Don't quote me on the date. I thought it was the 14th, but I could be wrong. But we're going to have a special town meeting. The major article on that is going to be a conservation restriction acquisition from a landowner on South College Highway. It was actually it's the land behind the Historical Society's place, the cigar factory and the Morehouse. So they've got the opportunity to purchase that property. They're going to purchase the property, but they're also the town is going to buy the conservation restriction. So it takes away the development rights, which lowers the purchase price, which enables the Historical Society to buy it. It's a good project. It's a real wet parcel for some of it, but there is developable industrial land in the front. It was actually going to be the site of a cannabis cultivation facility that was approved but never built. So they're selling the land. We have the opportunity to buy it. It's at the entryway to our town. The Historical Society's done their homework. They've gone in front of the CPC for that. I believe if they haven't met, they're going to meet to vote on that warrant article, send it to town meeting, and we'll have a town meeting for that. And we're going to have a couple cleanup articles, though there is going to be an article on there for pickleball to finally figure out what we're doing there, and with the number of courts at Wally Park and some behind Town Hall, and get that project finally kicked off and moving if town meeting votes to appropriate those funds.
All right, we're going to have to wrap it up.
So I just want to, again, take a brief moment, and thank you, Peter, for doing this and hosting us every month. And as I joked with you when I got here, I try to remember to be here when it's my turn. But this is my last show for the year. It's at Southwick's last show for the year. But I want to wish everyone, a happy, safe, healthy holiday season, a very, very happy new year. And if I can ever be of service, or you just want to have a conversation, feel free to reach out to me. A lot of people have my cell phone number, or reach out to me through the town webpage. I'll be glad to meet with you and talk to you and see what we can do. So again, everyone have a happy, safe, and healthy holiday season, and a very, very happy new year. Thank you so much.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 at 89.5